welcome to MyFit Money. My name is Randy Major. I'm your host today, and joining me from Mathies Financial Partners is President and Founder Jeff Mathies. How are you today, Jeff?
I'm doing well, Randy. How are you?
I'm so good. So good to be back here with you again this week. We have a great show prepared for the viewers, and it's really about risks for retirees. So what are some of those risks?
There's 3 or 4 big ones that I constantly run into when we're working with families going through the MyFit process. The first one, I think, where people, when they think about interest rates, they tend to remember the good old days in the 80s when you could put your money in a CD and get a huge interest rate, and they'd scratch your head and say, well, why would I ever put my money in the market if I can get interest rates like that? Well, today's not that way. Okay. Interest rates have been low for a long time. And when you ask people, are you worried about interest rate risk? A lot of times they don't understand what you mean by that. Well, I'm going to take you back in time a little bit, and we're going to talk about what happened in the markets in 2008 and how, because of the way people transitioned to bonds, how interest rate risk really was exposed to people that far back, and how we're on that cycle where that could actually happen again.
Okay.
So first, in 2008, with the subprime lending and all the real estate mess, markets lost almost 40%. I mean, it was a huge disaster for people. There was no safe place to be, it felt like. But a lot of folks realized, wow, I don't want to be in the market anymore. This is very painful. And when they looked and saw that bonds were up, they said, well, let's get out of the market and let's get into bonds. And that was in 2008. Well, guess when one of the worst years in history was to be in bonds? 2009.
Oh no.
When the bond market tanked.
Oh gosh.
So a lot of times people they'll deflect from one area of pain because they see some pleasure somewhere else, only to find even more pain over there once they get into it.
Okay.
So when we talk about interest rate risks, there's a lot of different things that happen there.
Yeah.
With the bonds, it's bad. You can think about mortgage rates right now are very low. So if people are trying to refinance your house, yes, now's the time to do it. If you're waiting to do that, I don't know how it could get any better. It's probably only going to get worse. Get it done. And with bonds, back to bonds for a little bit, if people are thinking about buying bonds right now, you need to fully understand how interest rates have an inverse relationship with how bonds work. So you think about bonds have a par value. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you buy a bond, the par value is $1,000 right now, and the interest rate is 2%, right? If interest rates go up, and now somebody can buy a bond at 3%, you can't sell your bond and get your money back because nobody wants your 2% bond. Okay. So the value actually goes down.
Right.
So right now may be a very, very bad time to purchase bonds because of how that inverse relationship works.
Okay.
Yeah.
So without a safe place then to earn small, consistent money, then do you invest more risk, or where do you go?
What we like to do is, when you think about the word risk, what does that actually equate to? We use something called standard deviation. It's a way to create a scientific number around what risk is for people. So let's talk about that for a second. You talk about where do we put money short term because interest rates are so low. What we have found is when you build a portfolio that has a bucket that's for short-term money, it will have some short-term bond positions in it, not long-term bonds where you're going to be subject to that horrible inverse relationship for a long time. But then you offset that with an equity position. And what we have found is your standard deviation is very low. So your risk is very low, and you have a high chance of earning a little bit of money that way, rather than sticking it all in equities and hoping for the best, or putting it all in fixed income and hoping for the best. If you combine the two and you do it in a way to where the diversification, again, is taking advantage of those dissimilar price movements, you tend to come out ahead.
Okay, so don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Definitely not.
General good rule of thumb.
Don't put them in one basket. I would suggest 46,000 baskets.
46,000 baskets. I like that.
Yeah, that's another show.
So this leads me to the next, retirement risk is market volatility. It goes hand in hand with what you were just saying.
Yeah. Market volatility is a big one. And I hear it a lot from people. When you don't fully understand how markets work, the word volatility can be very scary. I mean, it's to the point now where they even have a volatility index that you can invest in. If people are more scared, you can make more money. If they're not so scared you're going to lose some, that's ridiculous. But it's actually available for people. So thinking about volatility in the markets, I want to walk you back in time a little bit. Let's go back and let's say that we have the world's greatest portfolio and it is fully diversified. We are all over the world, dissimilar price movements everywhere, and we're in 1973. And in a model like that, as an example, that model would be down about 17%. So a lot of people, when they're not used to volatility, that would be a head scratch for them where they're freaking out a little bit. Man, do we get out of the market? We just lost 17% of our money, and this has got to last a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hold on. Then the next year comes and they lose 23.26%. Right, what do you think they do when they're a little nervous at that point with no plan?
Probably.
They sell out.
Yeah.
And they run away.
Yeah.
And what they missed was the next year would have been up almost 50%, and then 17 years of positive returns in a row.
Wow.
Before there was another negative year. So what people need to understand is market volatility is part of the deal. When you're investing in the market, the plan you have has to be able to engage and understand that you're going to have that volatility, and your plan has to be designed to handle turbulence. When you're in your airplane and you're flying on vacation and you hit turbulence, does the pilot jump out of the exit? If he does, you should be concerned. But that's not what happens, because those wings are designed to handle turbulence. Your portfolio should be the same way. You need to understand turbulence happens in portfolios.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. We never know where the next 20% is going to come from, but mathematically the next 100% is always up.
Yeah. So how do you determine at what point someone should maybe start taking less risk and, you know, approaching retirement, in retirement? Is it really up to the client, or do you advise them?
There's a lot that goes into that. So the first thing we have to do is we have to break down what the long-term expectation is of that money. What do we need to use it for? How much of that money needs to be carved off for income? And then do we have some short-term, mid-term, long-term positions in place? That way, if something goes wrong, they need to have some money readily available. It needs to not be tied down where you can get your hands on it right away. And then when we talk about reducing risk, one of the questions I think people fail to ask is, what's the purpose, the long-term purpose of this money? Is your goal just to blow every dime you have before you die? Because honestly, people tell me that. I ain't leaving anything. I want to spend it all. And I say, fine, just tell me what day you're going to die, and I'll build a plan around that. And so the reality is a lot of people are like, yeah, we want whatever's left's going to our kids. So there needs to be a legacy position in place. So if the goal is to leave a fair amount of money to your kids and grandkids, why would you take that money and stick it in a portfolio that's making almost no money?
Yeah,
because a lot of times in the world we live in today, there's hardly any money for these kids to go to college. And if they're not at the top of the class getting grants and scholarships and all that stuff, there's got to be another avenue to do that, unless you're going to send them into student debt, which a lot of families have to do that. So the clients that we're meeting with, a lot of them, they're like, Jeff, we want to make sure that doesn't happen to our grandkids. So we build a legacy plan around this is what that money is for. It's to get these kids through what could possibly be the most expensive part of their future and make sure that future happens.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, well, it's time for us to take a commercial break, Jeff. So let's quickly remind the viewers of the special offer you have for them today.
Right. The first 10 people who call us, you're going to get a complimentary MyFit portfolio review, where we're going to take a deep look into your portfolio and try to identify any extra fees you may be paying, any dysfunction where you should be making more money and taking less risk for it. We're going to show you what those things are. And then if you want us to give you some ideas on how to fix them, we can do that. But first, you have to call us at 844-234-3939. Get on the calendar. Let's spend a little time together and get to know each other and see if we can help you.
Okay, and speaking of risk, there is no risk with this appointment. This is completely complimentary, and there's no obligation. That's so important for the folks at home to know. And the phone lines are now open, so call now and secure your complimentary portfolio review, and that number is 844-234-3939. We're going to take a very short commercial break, but please don't go anywhere. So much more when we get back.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only. to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have, by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review today.
And welcome back to MyFit Money. My name is Randy Major, and joining me today from Mathies Financial Partners is founder and CEO, Jeff Mathies. Having another great show this week, Jeff. Thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge with me and the viewers. I always learn so much from you.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Now we're talking about, retirement risks, and we've touched on a few of these, and I think a big one also is tax risk, right?
Taxes is a big one, and it's one that is a constant moving target, and that target is going to get really big and really nasty in 2026. And a lot of people don't see this coming. So to talk a little bit about taxes and what's on the horizon, I think the first thing we need to do is understand that a lot of people that are worried about taxes, the second thing they ask us is, how do I convert my qualified money, such as 401ks and IRAs, how do I convert that into Roths? And the way that you do that, my suggestion would be, it needs to be strategic because of the tax changes that are coming. So when we're building these plans and we're helping people through the MyFit process, one of the things that we do for them is we design a conversion plan for them to say, here's how much money you have that is fully taxable, and let's see what it takes to get that money converted over to Roth accounts, so your tax position in the future isn't that big of a deal. And what we see a lot of people trying to do, and what scares them off, is they go, well, we've got a $500,000 IRA, and if we convert that to a Roth, we're going to lose 50% of it in taxes. Well, that's the wrong way to look at it. If you're trying to convert the whole thing at one time, it's going to be painful. But if you say, all right, Jeff taught me I have to get this done before 2026, because in 2026, tax rates revert back to what they were in 2018 automatically.
Okay.
Nobody has to do anything. The tax cuts that were put in by the Trump administration expire. And again, they go back to what they were in 2018.
Okay.
So the time is right now to get a plan together to try to get money converted from fully qualified money to tax-favored money. Right now is the time to do that.
Right.
And we build those plans to show people, here's how much you should convert every year. Here's what your tax situation is going to look like to do that. And sometimes you can convert the entire amount over that time and save some cash. Sometimes it can't be done because the IRAs are too big.
Okay.
And in that case, we design a plan around converting as much as we can. We want to know, what is your current adjusted gross income? What's that going to look like next year? So we know what your jump rate's going to be, which is what's the next bracket you're about to jump over, so you know what you're paying in taxes on conversion money.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, taxes are a big deal.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot to know.
There's a lot to know.
And a lot of changes coming. So, what does a conversion look like? Is that something that's hard to do?
Not really. It's not really hard to do if you understand the math around getting it done correctly. And the reason is, when I mentioned jump rate a minute ago, a lot of people don't understand that when you're converting to a Roth, if you're in a bracket now where you move a chunk of money and it only moves you up 2% in your tax bracket, that's probably something you should strongly consider. But if your jump rate is 10%, well, now you have to understand, how long is it going to take me to get back the money that I'm paying in taxes? And what's the taxable versus tax-free equivalent as far as how much spendable income do I get out of that money when it's time to use it?
Okay.
So yes, the conversion, the way it would look is, you'd first say, okay, how much money do I have that's qualified? and here's my tax brackets. And what does it look like to start converting that money over, and who's going to help me with that?
Okay, so this tax thing doesn't have to be such a fearful situation,
No.
because what you're going to do through the MyFit process is bring in the clients and really develop a plan to do that over time.
Yeah. Yep. And then if you are a high income earner where you already know, Jeff, I can't convert this efficiently because I'm going to be jumping to the top tax bracket anyway, we have a special program that we take our higher income earner clients through to show them here's what we would do to eliminate taxes on income you're getting that's outside of a pension or Social Security, things like that, to where if you're in a high bracket, you can go to a 0 or close on income from the investment side.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, sometimes it feels like, we're on a roller coaster ride and we can't predict, unforeseen events. How do you help your clients, plan for what's could be to come?
Yeah, so usually that's a healthcare question.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example of why the unforeseen things to come is sometimes a scary place to think about. No one wants to think about going to a nursing home or getting Alzheimer's or having to deal with any of that stuff.
Right.
Whether it's for themselves, their spouse, or their family, right? So we recognize right away that when you think about Medicare, there's only so much Medicare will cover. And a lot of people think, well, Medicare is going to cover my nursing home stay if I end up going there. That is not the case. It's not how it works. Mm-hmm. Medicare is only going to cover a certain amount, and then if you go from needing like a rehab center to actually skilled nursing care, they shut you down, and you're on your own. Then you have to start spending down assets. Mm. So thinking about the unforeseen things that happen, it's a pretty big conversation to have. We might want to talk about that when we come back from the break.
Yeah, I think this is like one of those situations, Jeff, where unless you've experienced something like that in your own family, it's just something you don't think about, you don't plan for, because who wants to think about that?
Yeah.
But it's a really terrible way to see someone's, savings diminish, and the costs are astronomical right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen people lose their entire fortunes because of a healthcare issue.
And this is exactly why folks should pick up the phone today, call in, come and see you, so they can really cover all of those bases and be able to survive any choppy waters.
Yeah.
So this is the perfect time, actually, to tell the viewers that are watching today what special offer you have for them.
Yeah, our special offer for you today, for the first 10 people who call in, you're going to get a complimentary MyFit portfolio review, where we're going to look through all of your statements, and we're going to run that through our special process to find out exactly what you're paying in fees, what your long-term expected rate of return is, and how much risk you're taking to get that return. And if there are any inefficiencies that we can point out to you that you can fix immediately, we'll tell you what those are. If there's something that we can do to help that become a better plan for you, we'll tell you that as well. But first, you have to call 844-234-3939, get on the calendar, and come spend some time with us.
Thank you so much, Jeff. To the viewers at home, now more than ever, like we've just been discussing, is the perfect time, and it's so important to make sure that your retirement is ready for what life is going to hand you. So today is your opportunity to meet with Jeff. Pick up the phone and call. It's 844-234-3939. Again, that's 844-234-3939. We thank you so much for calling. We have a lot of viewer questions coming in along with booking consultations, so we're going to get to some of those questions when we come back, so please stay tuned.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
And welcome back to MyFit Money. Again, I'm your host, Randy Major, chatting today with Jeff Mathies of Mathies Financial Partners. Now, before we get to the viewer questions, Jeff, we were talking a little bit about longevity risk, and I want to get more into the healthcare side of that before we move on.
Okay. When you think about longevity risk, a lot of people think it's only about, man, I need to live longer, right? It's longevity. It's how long am I going to live? And what I think is often misunderstood is while you're alive, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And dealing with those sometimes is impossible if it's too late. So a little bit about longevity when we talk about healthcare. I want to tell you a story. We had a client come into us. I met these folks. The guy's name was Alex. His wife was lovely, but she had developed Alzheimer's. And before she did that, we had designed a plan around that expectation because we knew there was some dementia issues. Well, when she developed Alzheimer's, she wasn't expected to live very long. And they gave her like maybe 2 years. And guess what happened? Her Alzheimer's went full-blown Alzheimer's. She couldn't remember anything, unfortunately. But because she was no longer stressed out, she actually got healthier medically.
Wow.
And she ended up living 8 years in an Alzheimer's unit at almost $10,000 a month.
Oh my goodness.
And if the planning wasn't done ahead of time to take care of that, it would have exhausted a substantial amount of their nest egg.
Oh, I would think so.
It's scary.
Yeah.
So Alzheimer's is an issue. The other challenge we find is when we think about what is it going to take, if something like that happens, what do people do?
Right.
A lot of people think, well, we're just going to call it, Medicare's going to take care of it. We've got these supplement plans or whatever, they'll take care of it. They don't realize Medicare doesn't take care of that stuff. And what we did to try to combat that education issue was we have 2 people in our office that are dedicated to educating our clients in the community on how Medicare works, Medicare supplements, A, B, C, and D, and that's all they do for our folks. Yeah. So again, it's part of the MyFit process is all of the clients that come through, they get to sit with those Medicare professionals and they can ask all the questions they want.
That's wonderful. Okay, we're going to get to some of those viewer questions if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, so the first one is from John, okay, and he says, which is a better option, long-term care insurance, annuity, or life insurance? I am 55. I would like to retire at 68 and then ease into part-time work. I've maxed out my IRA and I own my own home and I don't have a spouse or kids.
Okay. Okay, deep question there.
Yeah.
So there's 3 pieces of that. Number one, I would probably tell people to stay away from traditional long-term care insurance if they have the ability to get something called asset-based long-term care insurance.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is traditional long-term care insurance is experience rated. So if you go into a book of business just like with your car insurance, and if all the people in that book of business start using their long-term care benefits, guess what happens to your premiums? They go up, right? It's experience rated. And the difference would be asset-based, which doesn't really care what anybody else is doing. It's how much money do you have that you've put into this particular plan. And it tells you when you go in, you know exactly what your benefits are going to be. You know what it's going to cost you to get those. And you don't have to worry about your premium skyrocketing on you. Okay. So I would say if you're looking for long-term care insurance, try to get asset-based first. The challenge to asset-based is you have to qualify on mortality and morbidity, where traditional long-term care is morbidity only. But if you're healthy, go asset-based because in the long run, it always ends up better. And if your health issues have made those options so expensive, then the annuity route that's got those special healthcare benefits in it might be your only choice.
Okay, thank you for that answer, and
Sure.
Thank you, John, for calling in. All right, we have one more, and this one's from Susan. Okay, she says, within an IRA, is there a tax advantage with withdrawing from a bond fund versus a stock fund? What do you recommend in minimizing taxes when withdrawing from a tax-deferred account like an IRA or a 401k?
Okay. The first part of that, when you think about withdrawing money from a 401k or a bond fund, some sort of, there's not really a tax advantage. You just have to be careful about the vehicle it's setting in. So for example, if you put your money into a long-term bond deal and you're going to pull out early, you might actually lose value on that par rate based on what it's worth at the time. So it's not necessarily a tax issue as much as it is a product issue sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good to know. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. We have time for one more. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. This one's from Peter. He says, my wife and I are approaching retirement, and our financial advisor is recommending we put about 70% of our nest egg in stocks and about 30% in bonds. This approach seems risky to me. Is it? My preferred mix is about 60-40.
The answer is it could be. A lot of times, I find it interesting that people will use that rule of 100 where they go backwards and say, well, you're about to retire, so this is how much money you need in non-equity positions. And what I find dysfunctional about that is they haven't asked any of the questions before that. How long does the money need to last? How much of it needs to be used for income? How much of it do you expect to leave to kids that you want to ignore completely in your plan? I see a lot of real generic, let's go with the 70-30 mix, and then that's where they're starting, and they're trying to cram that into a plan that fits the other goals, and it creates turbulence in the plan, just like turbulence happens in the portfolio. So I think the reality is there's a lot more questions that need to be asked before you determine how much risk you're going to take, how much is going in bonds versus equities. I think it's very difficult to just say 70-30, 60-40, something like that. Yeah.
And this is the perfect example of why everyone should come in and have an appointment, because, you know, it's not a cookie cutter approach.
No. Definitely not.
Yeah. So we're already at the end of the show. Let's quickly remind our viewers about your special offer today.
Our special offers for the first 10 people who call us, we're going to give you a complimentary MyFit portfolio review, where we're going to dive very deep into what you have, try to figure out why. We want to know how much you're paying in fees, what your expected long-term rate of return is, and how much risk you're taking to get that return. And if there's anything we can do to put you in a better position there, we'll tell you what that is. But first, you got to call us at 844-234-3939.
Jeff, thank you so much for another great show. To the viewers at home, the phone lines are open. Please do give us a call. That number's on your screen, 844-234-3939. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a beautiful rest of your day.